The afternoon sun hung lazily in the sky, casting golden rays over the crowded park. Laughter echoed from groups of friends gathered near the picnic tables. Children ran past, their shrill voices cutting through the air. The smell of freshly cut grass mingled with the sweet scent of ice cream from a nearby truck, adding to the casual warmth of the day. Amongst the chaos, an older man sat alone on a worn wooden bench near the fountain. His face was lined with age, eyes deep with memories of battles fought long ago. His military uniform, faded and patched in places, told a story of service and sacrifice. His wheelchair was sturdy, a silent symbol of the struggles he'd endured, but he held himself tall, a quiet dignity in his posture, despite the weariness in his eyes. Nearby, a group of teenagers loitered near a tree, laughing obnoxiously, talking loudly. One of them, a young man with a cocky grin plastered on his face, stood out. He wore a black hoodie and ripped jeans, headphones dangling around his neck, and he seemed to be enjoying the attention he got from his friends. His voice rose above the rest, throwing insults and jokes around with no regard for those around him. Unbeknownst to him, his words were about to target someone who wouldn't let them go unnoticed. The veteran, though quiet, was acutely aware of the young man's presence, and his heart tightened as he braced himself for what was coming. The crowd around them remained blissfully unaware of the tension building, some lost in their own worlds, while others glanced nervously toward the veteran, sensing something wasn't quite right. The teen's laughter broke the peace like a sharp crack of thunder. He noticed the veteran sitting alone on the bench and, with a smirk, nudged his friends, who snickered in response. "Hey, look at this guy," he called out, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. "Looks like he's still living in the past. Did he forget the war ended years ago, or is he just stuck in a wheelchair because he couldn't even finish it out?" A few of his friends chuckled, but the laughter wasn't genuine. It was a nervous, uncertain sound that lingered in the air, as though even they knew the line had been crossed. The veteran's hands rested calmly on the arms of his chair, his posture as straight as it could be despite the weariness that ran deep in his bones. He didn't look up immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the ground, as if finding solace in the simple act of stillness. But there was a slight tightening of his jaw, and the glint in his eyes revealed something more. A quiet pain, not from the words but from the lack of respect they carried. But the teen wasn't finished. He strutted closer, his voice rising with each word. "What, no salute? Come on, soldier, don't tell me you're still waiting for someone to thank you for whatever nonsense you did. You probably couldn't even make it to the front lines without someone pushing you around." The words stung. The veteran's eyes flickered for a moment, perhaps a memory from long ago, perhaps a thought of those he had lost, before he blinked and focused on the present again. He didn't respond. Didn't even give the teen the satisfaction of looking up. But there was a subtle shift in the air, a quiet intensity that seemed to have built around him. The crowd around them began to take notice. A couple of people glanced over at the veteran, uncomfortable but unsure of what to do. Some exchanged uneasy looks, unsure if they should step in or just pretend it wasn't happening. Others, the younger ones, shifted uncomfortably, their faces betraying a mix of confusion and guilt. But no one spoke up. The mocking continued, with the teen now spitting out crude jokes about the veteran's condition, oblivious to the growing tension. It was as if he believed the veteran's silence made him an easy target. But the deeper the teen dug, the more the air around them seemed to thicken. The teen's taunts grew louder, more biting. He leaned in closer, his voice laced with mockery, as though daring the veteran to do something, anything that would make him feel like he'd won. His friends laughed, egging him on, oblivious to the discomfort their words were causing. But the veteran remained motionless, his hands still resting on the wheelchair's arms. His face was an unreadable mask, though his eyes, now distant, betrayed a deep, internal struggle. There was no anger in them, just a tired resignation. His lips remained closed, but the slight tightening of his shoulders told a different story. The words stung, but he would not show it. A soft breeze blew past, ruffling his faded military cap, and for a brief moment it looked like he was lost in a memory, perhaps of another time, another place. The veteran shifted his weight in the chair, a subtle movement that seemed almost imperceptible to those watching. He adjusted his position, as if the simple act of shifting his body could ease the pain that clung to him, unseen but ever present. His face, though calm, betrayed a faint hint of exhaustion, the weight of years pressing down on him. There was no snapping, no outburst, just a slow, deliberate breath. The teen didn't notice the shift in the veteran's demeanor, or if he did, he didn't care. Instead, he escalated, his voice growing louder, mocking the veteran's every move. "What's the matter, old man? Did you forget how to speak, or are you just too tired from all those brave battles you claim to have fought?" His friends laughed again, their voices rising in a chorus of cruel amusement. The crowd, still unsure of what to do, started to shift, a few people now looking directly at the veteran, watching him for any sign of reaction. There was a long, tense silence that hung over the park, thick with anticipation. Everyone seemed to be waiting for the veteran to explode, to snap. But the veteran didn't move. His gaze never wavered from the ground, though his fingers tightened just slightly on the chair's arms. He held his ground, showing no outward signs of frustration, no anger. Only calm, unwavering resolve. The mocking continued, but something in the air had shifted. People were starting to realize the strength it took for the veteran to remain silent, to endure this ridicule without breaking. The teen, however, was too absorbed in his own arrogance to notice. The crowd's attention was slowly turning from the teenager's obnoxious taunts to the veteran, but just as the atmosphere reached a boiling point, something unexpected happened. A tall figure, moving with purpose, suddenly appeared beside the bench where the veteran sat. He was dressed in a dark suit, his tie sharp and his posture straight. His presence was commanding, almost like a force of nature, and the air seemed to shift around him as he approached. The teen didn't notice the man at first, too absorbed in his cruel jokes to care about anything else. But the crowd did. Whispers began to spread, people subtly turning their heads to observe the stranger who'd appeared out of nowhere. The man's face was stern, his expression serious, almost intimidating. He didn't say a word, but there was an undeniable air of authority around him. He walked up slowly, never breaking his gaze from the veteran sitting on the bench. The man stood beside the veteran, giving him a respectful nod, a silent acknowledgement of service and sacrifice that seemed to speak volumes. The crowd was confused, unsure of what was going on. Who was this man? Why had he come over? The teen finally turned, noticing the stranger standing there. His arrogant smirk faltered for a split second, as he realized that someone was standing between him and the veteran. But the teen, always confident in his bravado, shrugged it off. "What's this?" the teen sneered, addressing the man in the suit. "You here to stop me from having some fun with this old guy?" The man didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked down at the teen, his eyes cold and unflinching. The silence between them was thick, like a storm waiting to break. And then, with a low voice, the man spoke, calm but firm. "Let me make this clear," he said, his words cutting through the air. "You can mock all you want, but not at the expense of someone who gave more than you ever will." The teen blinked, momentarily thrown off guard by the man's tone, but he quickly recovered, sneering again. "Oh, really? And what are you going to do about it, tough guy? This old man's not going to do anything, and neither are you." The crowd held its breath, sensing the tension building. The man's face remained impassive, but his next words made the teen's bravado waver. "Do you know who this man is?" he asked, his voice low but unwavering. The teen looked from the veteran to the stranger, his cocky grin slowly fading as he began to feel the weight of the question. "What, is he some kind of hero or something?" The teen scoffed. "What's that supposed to mean?" The man's eyes never left the teen, the intensity in his gaze making it impossible to look away. "You don't know him, but I do," he said. "This man served in the same unit I did. He was there when many of us weren't. And what you're doing right now, mocking him, it's disrespecting the sacrifices we all made." The teen opened his mouth, but no words came out. He shifted his weight uncomfortably, suddenly feeling exposed, like he was on the edge of something he couldn't control. "Take a good look at him." The man continued, his voice now laced with a cold, measured anger. "You're standing here mocking a man who paid a price for his country, and if you think there won't be consequences for your actions, you're sorely mistaken." The teen glanced around, realizing the crowd had fallen silent. No one was laughing anymore. People were watching him, waiting for him to say something, to respond. But he was no longer sure of himself. The man in the suit stood his ground, not threatening physically, but with something more powerful: the truth. The tension was palpable. The teen's bravado cracked, but he stubbornly refused to back down, even as the atmosphere shifted. He wasn't ready to accept defeat. Not yet. The man in the suit stood there, unwavering, his eyes locked on the teen. The tension had reached a boiling point, and the air around them felt thick with anticipation. But what happened next completely shifted the atmosphere. The stranger took a deep breath, his face softening slightly, though his gaze remained intense. "You still don't get it, do you?" he said, his voice steady. "You think this is just about the man in the wheelchair. But it's not." The teen stood there, confused but unwilling to back down. "What's that supposed to mean? Who are you?" The man's lips curled into a faint, almost sad smile, and for a moment he finally took his gaze off the teen, looking down at the veteran beside him. Then, slowly, he turned back, his eyes locking with the young man once more. "I guess I should have said this sooner, but I'm not just some guy trying to defend a stranger." He paused for a moment, as if letting the weight of his words sink in, then finally spoke again, his voice quiet but filled with undeniable authority. "I was in the same unit as him. We fought side by side. My name's Sergeant Samuel Harper, and this man next to me? He's Captain Daniel Miller, and I'll tell you right now, he's the reason any of us made it out alive." The teen's face faltered, his smirk dropping as the name struck a chord deep inside him. He had heard that name before. The name of a decorated hero, a man whose service record was legendary, though the details were always vague, the stories whispered in hushed tones. And now, standing in front of him, was the man he had so thoughtlessly mocked. Samuel Harper's expression hardened, his voice quiet but firm. This man didn't just serve, he led. He was the captain of a team that was sent into the heart of battle, day in and day out. And not just any battle. He fought in some of the toughest campaigns this country has ever known. So, when you mocked him, when you ridiculed his service, you weren't just insulting him, you were insulting everyone who served with him. The teen's face flushed. The cocky arrogance that had once been so present in his stance now crumbled under the weight of the truth. He opened his mouth to speak, but the words didn't come. His confidence had evaporated, replaced by a creeping feeling of shame he couldn't quite shake. The crowd around them had gone completely still, the once uneasy murmurs fading into a heavy silence. They were all watching, realizing the depth of the situation, the significance of what was unfolding before them. The once dismissed veteran was no longer just an old man in a wheelchair. He was a hero, a man who had earned every ounce of respect that had been denied him. And as the teen stood there, grappling with the gravity of his actions, something in the air shifted. The crowd no longer saw the man in the suit as just an outsider. They saw him as a brother in arms, someone who had come to the defense of a fallen comrade. The teen's mockery, once so loud and forceful, now felt insignificant in the face of the truth. And it was that truth, more than anything else, that stunned the crowd into an uncomfortable, humbling silence. The teen's posture slumped, the arrogance draining from him like air from a balloon. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The realization hit him like a cold wave. He had mocked a hero, a man who had sacrificed more than he could possibly understand, and now there was no way to take those words back. Sergeant Harper looked down at the teen, his face stern but not unkind. "I'm not asking for your apology," he said, his voice calm, yet unwavering. "But remember this moment, understand the weight of what you've done, and the next time you think it's funny to mock someone for their service, think twice. There are consequences, always." With that, Harper turned to the veteran, giving him another nod of respect. The two men exchanged a brief, silent understanding before they began to wheel away together, leaving the teen standing there completely still. The crowd remained silent, the weight of what had just happened settling in. Eyes that had once glanced nervously now stared at the teen with judgment. He was no longer the confident young man who had been making jokes. He was a person exposed, stripped of his bravado, now forced to face the consequences of his actions. The teen didn't move. He stood there, lost in the quiet hum of the park, the echoes of his own humiliation reverberating in his mind. The message was clear: respect, humility, and understanding were the true markers of strength, not mockery. As the man in the suit and the veteran disappeared into the distance, the park fell into a heavy silence. The crowd stood still, each person lost in thought. Some glanced at each other, shame creeping over them for not stepping in sooner, for not recognizing the significance of the moment when they should have. The teen, still rooted to the spot, was left to grapple with his own shame. The park slowly returned to life, but the message lingered in the air. Every person, regardless of their past or appearance, deserves respect and dignity, and that lesson was one they would all carry with them. If you were moved by this story, remember that respect and understanding go a long way in shaping the world around us. Never forget the impact of our words and actions, and always honor those who've sacrificed for us. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an important message. Don't forget to like and comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, be sure to share it with them. Let's spread the message of respect, humility, and compassion far and wide. Thanks for watching.